This is the same target. I used the same telescope and I took the images on the same night with the same focus. One of these frames was taken at the start of the session. The other was taken several hours later. Nothing changed at all except one thing, and one thing only. It wasn't the focus. If your astrophotos are coming out blurry, I can almost guarantee you're blaming the wrong thing. I'm going to show you exactly what's actually causing that using real data from my own sessions. 4 causes. Let's go through each one of them. Cause 1, and this is the one almost nobody talks about. This is atmospheric seeing. Not your equipment, not your focus. The atmosphere itself is the problem. Here's what that means. When you look up at a clear sky, you're looking through kilometers of turbulent air. Air at different temperatures, moving at different speeds, constantly shifting. That turbulence bends and distorts the light coming from your target before it even reaches your telescope. No amount of focusing corrects for that. It's happening above you, not inside your equipment. Look at these stars, round but soft and bloated, not elongated, not trailing, just mushy. That's the signature of poor seeing. The stars are in focus. The atmosphere is the problem. This frame was taken 3 hours later. Same focus, same everything. The difference is that M27 had risen higher in the sky, and that matters more than most people realize. When I started imaging last night, M27 had an air mass of approximately 1.69. That means the light was traveling through 69% more atmosphere than if it were directly overhead. 3 hours later, the air mass had dropped to 1.06, almost optimal. That single change, the target rising higher in the sky, produced noticeably sharper frames. Same telescope, same focus, and same camera. How do you diagnose seeing in your own data? Well, there are 2 ways. First, look at your star shapes in individual frames. Round but soft and bloated means the problem was seeing. Second, open Siril after registration and look at your FWHM plot. This is my FWHM plot from last night. Watch what happens as the session progresses and the air mass drops. The FWHM values improve. Smaller numbers, tighter stars, purely because the target is higher in the sky. That's atmospheric seeing, measured objectively. So here's a practical fix. Check your target's altitude before you image. Use stellarium or telescopius. Don't start imaging a target until it's above 30 degrees altitude, ideally above 40, and check the seeing forecast on Meteo Blue or Clear Outside before you go out. Seeing is rated separately from cloud cover, and it matters just as much. And by the way, I do have an Astro Target planner, which I've developed myself to check exactly the best imaging targets and the altitude there. So you can go check that out. Link is in the description. The second cause is wind and vibration. This is something that really bugs me here as I live beside the sea in Turkey, and it's a big problem. I'm going to show you exactly what this problem looks like because several nights ago, I lost almost half of my frames. I had to delete them because of wind. These are single frames from that session. See the star shapes, irregular, inconsistent across the frame, sometimes smeared in different directions in different parts of the image. That's not focus. That's mount vibration from wind gusts hitting the telescope mid-exposure. I imaged near the sea in Cheshire, which is near Izmir in Turkey. The wind is a real and consistent problem for me. On that night, I thought conditions looked fine, clear sky, no obvious gusts, but I went to sleep and woke up to extreme winds and I lost 50% of my frames, just like that. When I reviewed them, the evidence was obvious. This is what wind looks like in PhD2. The guiding corrections are erratic, large sudden spikes in both axes, inconsistent and unpredictable. This isn't periodic error from the mount. This is external force, wind hitting the tube and the mount trying to correct for it. Now, how do you diagnose wind vibration in your own data? There are 3 ways. First, look at individual frames for irregular star shapes that vary across the entire frame and vary between frames. Second, check your PhD2 graph for sudden unpredictable spikes. Third, Sort your frames by quality in Siril after registration and look at the rejection rate. A high rejection rate on an otherwise clear night is almost always wind. Practical fixes: image when the wind is below 10 to 15 kilometers per hour, use a shorter focal length in windy conditions. Vibration affects long focal length systems much more severely than short focal length. And if you do have a garden wall or building that can act as a windbreak without blocking your target, do use it. Okay, now cause 3, which is tracking error. This one is easier to diagnose than the others because it has a very specific visual signature: elongated stars. Not round and soft like seeing, not irregular like vibration, consistently elongated, stretched in one direction, consistently across the whole frame. If every star in your image looks like a tiny dash rather than a point, that's tracking. In PhD2, this shows up as a consistent drift in one axis. The guiding corrections are all going in the same direction, trying to compensate for a mount that isn't tracking accurately enough. Common causes are polar alignment error, periodic error in the mount, or a payload that's too heavy for the mount's rated capacity. How to diagnose this? Well, look at your star shapes in individual frames. If they're elongated and all pointing in the same direction, it's tracking. If they're elongated but pointing in different directions in different parts of the frame, that's field rotation, which is a polar alignment problem specifically. Now, some practical fixes for this. Spend more time on polar alignment before every session. Try to get it as good as you can, but don't go to extremes. Use PhD2's drift alignment tool. If you don't have a polar scope and don't exceed 70% of your mount's rated payload, manufacturers' payload ratings are optimistic at best. Now for cause 4, and yes, sometimes the focus actually is the problem, just not in the way most people think. Beginners assume that blurry images mean they set focus wrong at the start of the session. That's rarely the issue. If you used a Batonov mask and achieved a good focus at the beginning, you were probably focused correctly. The real focus problem is drift. Over a long session, especially in a location with significant temperature changes overnight, your focus moves slightly as the temperature drops. Metal components contract, the focus point shifts, and by hour 3, your carefully achieved focus from the start of the session is no longer accurate. The signature for focus drift is different from seeing. With seeing, the blurriness is inconsistent. Some frames are sharp, some aren't. With focus drift, the frames get progressively softer over time in a consistent way. The stars gradually bloat as the session continues. Practical fixes for this focus issue are that you should refocus every 45 to 60 minutes during a long session. This is optimistic, and I don't think I really do this, but it is recommended, especially if temperature is dropping significantly. Use a temperature compensating focuser if your system supports it, and always check a few individual frames mid-session rather than assuming your initial focus is holding. So 4 causes, 4 different signatures, 4 different fixes. Here's the quick diagnostic. If you've got round, soft, bloated stars consistent across the frame, your problem is seeing. Check the air mass and seeing forecast next time. If you have irregular stars, inconsistent across the frame, spikes in PhD2, it could be wind and vibration. Check the wind speed and protect your mount. If you can do something to shield against the wind, that'd be even better. I've tried quite a few different things. It's quite a few solutions, but my observatory is not currently being planned. If you see elongated stars and it's consistently in one direction across the frame, the issue is tracking. Check your polar alignment and the payload of your mount. Don't exceed, if possible, 50-60% of the payload capacity. Sometimes you get stars progressively softening over the session. That's focus drift. The solution to that is to refocus mid-session. None of them are fixed by buying more expensive equipment. Most of these are fixed by changing when and how you image. The free imaging checklist is at astroimagery.com/get cheat sheet, and it covers session setup in detail. Check the link below. Which of these 4 causes has hit you the hardest, and how do you figure out what it was? Drop it below. If you've got any tips that you'd like to share, please do share them in the comments. How do you cope with blurry images? What do you do to get better and sharper images? So I look forward to seeing what you've got to say. If you haven't got your mount sorted yet, the upgrade order video is here. It's the foundation to everything else. Please check out the description for the video link. There's also another video that I'm going to drop in there that might also help with your setup. So do check the description. For now, this has been Carl Pereira at Astro Imagery. See you in the next one.